Does militant Islam pose a significant threat to European freedoms? And if it does, can Europe respond without jeopardizing the very principles it seeks to defend? My guest today is a Dutch MP who's been threatened with death for his outspoken attacks on Islam and immigration. He says Europe's witnessing an undeclared war. So who's winning? Geert Wilders, welcome to Hard Talk.
It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Do you believe that the Netherlands is experiencing what has been called a clash of civilizations?
Yes, I believe, unfortunately, not only the Netherlands, but whole Europe, the whole Western societies are in fact experiencing what Huntington wrote down, I believe quite correctly, that there in fact is a clash of civilizations. And well, that it, unfortunately, the sense of urgency that we need in Europe and in my own country, the Netherlands, to really solve this problem and to win this so-called clash is not there yet.
We'll talk about your proposals, your solutions, but I want to get to grips with your feelings about the people you believe are responsible for the clash. For example, after the murder of Theo van Gogh, the Dutch filmmaker, in November 2004, you said, referring to the sorts of people, the fundamentalists who you believed were responsible, you said, these people are motivated by just one thing, to kill everything we stand for.
Yes, I believe the motivation of those people is hate.
Well, let's be clear. You say these people, those people. Who do you mean?
The people that adhere to the concept of the pure and radical Islam. Unfortunately, those people are, even though they are a minority of the Muslims in the world, they are a minority that is growing and a minority that is endangering everything that we stand for, our rule of law, our civil society, everything that we stand for in our democracy. And the same goes for Holland.
Let me stop you for a second. You talk about a pure and radical Islam. Surely this isn't about a pure Islam. There are many good Muslims who go to mosque who would be as appalled by what happened to Theo van Gogh as you were.
Yes, certainly. And the majority of the Muslims, also in my country, fortunately, have nothing to do with extremism, have nothing to do with terrorism. But there is a minority, and there is a growing minority, who is fighting against our democratic principles by using violence, by the terrorists like the one, Mohammed B, who killed Theo van Gogh. But also there's a large amount of people, between 5 and 15% of the Muslim population, not only in the Netherlands but also in other countries, that are not using violence yet, are not violent today, but have sympathy to the concept of the radical Islam.
And this how do you know that? You've just given me an amazing figure. 15%, you say, of Muslims in Holland. In Holland, that would at least 150,000 people.
Between 50. Well, our government, the Dutch government, sent a report to Parliament from our Secret Service where the number of 5% was mentioned. Other people, like Professor Janssen of the Amsterdam University, but also Daniel Pipes in the United States, I mean, is a figure that is not only used in the Netherlands, come up with a figure of 15%. So between 5 and 15%, 5% according to our government, 15 independent professors all over the world in Western societies of Muslim population are not using violence yet, but are in fact
that's an awfully inflammatory statement to make. And let me just quote your own government.
Yeah.
Just weeks ago they released an analysis, I think perhaps the same thing you're referring to, from the security services, suggesting that Muslims in Holland, and I'm now quoting, are becoming more resistant to radicalization and violence committed in the name of Islam. More resistant.
Unfortunately, this doesn't change any of the numbers I just mentioned to you. 5 to 15% of the Muslims in Holland feel sympathetic towards the pure radical Islam. And this
Did you talk to imams in the mosques in the Netherlands?
Well, I'm not, unfortunately, because of my situation, they want to talk to. I always said that I'm open to talk to anybody, whether they are from whatever religion. But this is real once again. We are losing if we don't get this sense of urgency, and if we don't see Islam to our Western society. We are losing our societies. We are losing our countries.
All right. Well, that's important. I want to stick with this idea, because if we are to agree with your idea that there's some sort of clash of civilizations taking place, I want you to tell me what you believe is represented by Dutch values, as you would describe them.
Yes. Well, I believe that one of the solutions, one of the problems, let me start with that, is that we are not able to describe and to formulate who we are, where we come from. What is our culture? What is our dominant culture? Also in my own parliament that we get a new Article 1 of our constitution with Netherlands, and it's based on Christianity, on Judaism. Of course, this doesn't not welcome in the Netherlands. People from Islamic or other backgrounds.
Well, when you use words like dominant, one will wonder
yes,
whether you really will.
It's a concept which the word in German has. Proud on that I'm a Dutchman, that my country is original, and even today has a from Christianity, from Judaism, from humanism, that we have values that are not Islamic, intolerant values today. Something to be proud of. Other countries do.
Well, let's talk about values and tolerance. In the Times newspaper and you've been far too tolerant for far too long.
Yes, and I meant with that I believe that we have been too tolerant to the intolerant. And to start to become, of course we should stay tolerant to the tolerant, but to become intolerant to the intolerant.
Well, I'm getting a little confused here.
Maybe
a little confused.
Dutch is a country, we are a country of consensus. We are a country of tolerance. And what we like to do best, Christmas tree, hold each other's hand and sing Christmas song all year long. But the problems are there. They cannot be swept under the carpet. And one of the problems is that we never really face up to problems. When it comes to this concept of cultural relativism, when it comes to the negative aspects of our multicultural society, those problems are there. Look at the facts, look at the reality. To fight this problem, then we should stop once again being tolerant. People.
Let's stop for a second, if you would. Do you respect for freedom of religion as basic Dutch values?
Boundaries of our law. And even in our constitution it says that...
And you regard respect for the law as a basic Dutch value?
Not only respect for the law, but also respect for the values, with perhaps one exception. I believe that whose sole aim is to, once again, kill everything we stand for, to change our rule of law into, for instance, a Sharia, an Islamic law, to put away our democracy and get something else instead of it. For those people who also want to use violence in order to achieve this Islamo-fascistic goals, I do that, they don't deserve the rights of the institution. So
that is a quite extraordinary statement you're making, and you've made it before. There are people in Dutch society, you're saying, who do not deserve the respect of the rule of law. They do not deserve to be treated with due process.
According to me,
you are saying they are beyond the pale.
Yes, let me give you, perhaps you allow me to give you one example. The Dutch Secret Service said a few years ago, but they are still saying it today, that in Holland there are a few hundred terrorists, radical Islamists, that are walking through the street. People like Mohammed Bouyeri, who killed Theo van Gogh. But because...
with respect, he was convicted after due legal process. Yes. You are talking about people who do not deserve the rights of the rule of law without going to a judge, you said recently, and expelled. Without going to a judge.
But maybe you allow me to finish what I just tried to tell you. Now what I tried to tell you is that there are a few hundred people walking, according to me, but according to the Dutch Secret Service, whose aim is to use violence sooner or later in order to achieve their goals.
That is a suspicion they have. A suspicion
not my
the authorities
suspicion,
may
it's a
have.
suspicion the authorities may have.
Nothing more than a suspicion.
If I can choose between taking our chances and letting those people walk freely down the streets of Amsterdam or Rotterdam, or as a preventive measure to use, for instance, administrative detention, to arrest those people by an administrative law, of course they'll also be checked by a court, but not by a penal code, not by a penal court, then I choose for the safety of the Dutch families. I choose for the fact that I don't want to take the risk that tomorrow in the metro of Rotterdam or in the streets of Amsterdam, one of these guys puts off a bomb or some detonation.
I think I understand what you're saying. What you are describing is a Dutch Guantanamo Bay. Is that what you want?
It's common sense.
It's a Dutch Guantanamo Bay.
That's administrative detention. When I visited my friends in Israel, where they use it, not only in the
Have you read the human rights reports about the way Israel uses administrative detention?
It's very effective.
Do you think Dutch values?
I would very much, otherwise I wouldn't have proposed it in my own parliament. I believe that between, if you have to choose between the safety of the Dutch families and the Dutch individuals, or granting some people who want to kill our democracy and granting them the rights that other people get, I choose for the former and not for the latter, and I'm proud to say so.
So to be clear, you're not fighting for a return to traditional Dutch values, you're actually trying to impose a whole new set of Dutch values.
I believe this will strengthen our rule of law. if we don't allow, and if we are not so political correct, that we let people misuse our constitution only in order to get rid of our constitution. And for that, you need to be strong, you need to be tough, and it will defend our tolerance, and it will defend our rule of law.
Just to take a few other examples, just to get a real flavor of what your proposals amount to. You want to see summary deportation of criminals who are dual citizens of the Netherlands,
Yes.
but also another country. You just say they should be thrown out of the country.
Well, of course not immediately, and not if they...
Well, that's what you want to see. You want to see them gone.
No, I want... But
Even
not,
if they have Dutch
not,
citizenship.
Not immediately. I proposed in my parliament the following. I said if what people bothers more than the normal terrorism is what I call the street terrorism. I don't know if you have...
So let's get this straight. Anybody who, in your view, is not in some way native Dutch, if they transgress the law in any way, they should be sent back to the country of origin, should they?
We have a lot of problems with people with double nationality, especially from Moroccan background, in our major cities in the Netherlands. In Amsterdam, we had many debates of it in Parliament, in Rotterdam, in many 20, 30 cities in the Netherlands. And everything we've done so far is not effective. We put these people in jail, we find them, we get some social workers, it was all ineffective. And I'm looking for an effective way. And yes, indeed, if people commit a crime, and they do it again, and you do it again for a third time, then at the end of the day I would say that if you have a double nationality, for instance you are Moroccan and Dutch, we will have to strip you from the Dutch nationality and send you away.
You want to, just to continue, let's talk more about your proposals. You want at least a 5-year ban on immigration from non-Western countries. You want to ban women wearing the burqa, that is the all-over robing that some Muslim women choose to wear. You want the immediate deportation of failed asylum seekers, even if, like in the case of the 18-year-old Kosovar Albanian student, even if they have basically spent their young life entirely in the Netherlands. You want to get them out of the country as soon as possible, even if, as in her case, she was about to take exams in Holland after studying in Holland for many years.
You know, in Holland, I believe it's not so much different in the United Kingdom. We are a democracy. And those kind of verdicts are set by a court. And this lady went to a court, and she went to appeal to another court. And the court and the judges said at the end of the day, there is no ground for you to have asylum in Holland. And then if the minister decides to send somebody away, irrespective of how long somebody was in the Netherlands or went to school or not, and this is democracy. Democracy is that if you are not allowed to be in your country, that you have to be sent away. So I don't know what's the problem with that.
There's no law in Holland right now, which I've seen, which suggests that women should be banned from wearing robes which cover their faces, bar their eyes.
This is true. I'm very happy, by the way, that the majority in the Dutch parliament supported my motion to totally ban the burqa in public life. And maybe you allow me to give you shortly the reasons why I propose that. First is that I believe that in a time as today, where we have a lot of security problems, everybody should be able to identify any person in the street. Whatever you are wearing, you should not be fully covered. Secondly, I believe that it's a medieval sign of how we should not treat women. Thirdly, I believe that women, also Muslim women in Holland, should be independent. And I can tell you one thing, that if you wear a burqa in the Netherlands today, you won't get a job, you won't get Dutch friends, and it's a big no to Dutch society, and it's a yes to segregation and isolation.
It comes back to this word domination, doesn't it? Dominant cultures. You want to impose what you see as an acceptable Dutch culture.
No, I said I want the Christian and the Jewish and the humanistic culture to be dominant, but I also said that other cultures are welcome in my country, as long as they are not dominant. But once again, to ban the burqa, I believe will strengthen the moderate Islam, will strengthen women who don't want to wear the burqa, and in order to get them to find a job. And once again, if you wear a burqa in Holland, you will get no Dutch friends, you will get no job, you will not become independent, and you will therefore be unsuccessful in the Dutch society. And if you want Muslim people, which I also want, I want that very much, to integrate in the Dutch society, and this is not the way to do it.
Well, I have to tell you, if that's what you want, you seem to be failing miserably. We spoke, this program spoke to Ayhan Toncher, a leader of the Turkish community in the Netherlands, from the Islamic Cultural Foundation. He said Wilders is polarizing Dutch society. He has no ideas to offer about living with Muslims. The reality is that Muslims do live here, will always live here. You are simply polarizing and infuriating with your proposals infuriating the Muslim population.
Yes. Well, of course, I'm not of the opinion that I'm polarizing. At least that's not my aim.
It surprises you, does it? The things you've told me polarize opinion.
No, I know what he said before, so I'm not surprised that he says it. But I'm saying that it's not my aim to polarize. My aim is to get a proud, Dutch, strong society with strong individuals and with a dominant culture, which is not an Islamic culture in the Netherlands.
If it's not your aim to polarize, why did you publish the Danish cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad on your website?
Well, the whole issue of the Danish cartoons showed me and angered me that Europe is weak and that Europe is full of cowards. The Danish people and colleagues of yours, journalists, were threatened. Their flag and embassies and consulates were burned. Ambassadors from Islamic countries came to the Danish Prime Minister.
We know all that. No, we know all that. My question to you is why you, as a Dutchman, chose to put them on your website when you tell me you don't want to polarize opinion and create new rifts inside your own society.
Because everything what I just said happened in Europe. The Danish were threatened and everything I said, and Europe was silent. Europe was weak. Europe was thinking, oh come on, this is not my cup of tea. If I say something, perhaps it might happen to my country as well. We did nothing. We were silent, and it angered me. I thought I want to have some solidarity with the Danish, and I want to put a very strong signal that I adhere to the most principle and most important right to at least to the Dutch constitution, which is the freedom of expression. And I was so angered by this cowardness of Europe. We only saw also my own foreign minister, Mr. Bot, but also Mr. Solana, the one in charge from Europe when it comes to foreign affairs, went to Saudi Arabia, a country that doesn't even know how to spell the word democracy, let alone the freedom of speech, and explained and excused, and this is something that I cannot stand.
Well, isn't the truth, Geert Wilders, that you and your political movement only thrive when there is high tension, high anger between the Muslim and immigrant community and what you would call the native Dutch community? That is when your party does well. In the opinion polls, your ratings go right down in periods of calm. You need to be provocative.
No, if you look at the polls yesterday, I'm approximately 5% of the vote, and 15% of the Dutch electorate is considering voting for me in the elections last year. This figure of 15 is already
10%.
steady for the...
You've gone down 10%, haven't you? Your opinion poll ratings are going right down.
I have now 5% of the vote, and the poll of yesterday says 15% of the people are considering to vote for me. And my program, of course, is not only about Islam, it's also about a smaller government, lower taxes, better education, whatever. But I'm not ashamed to tell you, whatever your questions might be, that the fact that we have a problem with the pure and radical Islam, and that we have to face up to this problem, and that the solutions therefore are not always neat and nice, is something that I stand up for, and something that a lot of people in my country find also sympathy for, because they know and they feel that the sense of urgency that is needed to live together in a country, but with strong rules about what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, is not done by the current government today. I'm proud.
Well, we've talked a lot about your attitude to Islam and to Muslims living in your midst.
Yeah.
But let's broaden it out and let's be very blunt. Are you saying, for example, the fact that Amsterdam, Rotterdam, The Hague are very soon, if not now, going to be majority non-white cities is not acceptable for the Netherlands?
Of course it's not acceptable. You ask me a question as if it's some kind of surprise what my answer would be.
But it's reality. It is the fact. And if you're saying it's not acceptable, you're either going to have to move all these people out, or you are going to have to leave your own country.
Unfortunately, in the two major cities of my country, Amsterdam and Rotterdam, if you look at the people under the age of 21, the majority is already from non-Western countries. And those are not people like here in the United Kingdom, and people who come from your former colonies or from the West Indies and more or less share some kind of culture, feel British. In Holland it's not the case. 90% of them come from countries like Morocco and Turkey with a totally different culture, a different background, and a lack of education, often go to crime. I don't invent it, those are the formal statistics. And I feel that it's unacceptable. I wouldn't want to live in a country as the Netherlands, where the majority of the country, let alone of a certain city, would be Islamic. That doesn't mean that I hate Islam. This is ridiculous. But I believe that we should be proud in the Netherlands.
You chose to say Islamic. You could have just said non-white. You are a racist, aren't you?
No, I'm not at all. How dare you say that? I mean, I'm talking about non-Western immigrants, but to be honest, if you look at the figures, 90% of the non-Western immigrants in the Netherlands, and this is different from the United Kingdom, are from Islamic countries. So it's almost the same group. I didn't invent it, it's the case. And in order to live together with the different cultures in a normal and sophisticated and tolerant way, we have to learn to defend who we are, and we have to learn to be tough against the intolerant people.
You see, I thought who you were, who the Dutch were people who believed in democracy, believed in tolerance. You have an example on Europe's doorstep of a country that is both Muslim and democratic. That is Turkey. Many Europeans, including almost all European leaders, now want to see Turkey inside the European Union. Negotiations have already begun. Why is that not the signal to send, a way of drawing moderate democratic Islam into Europe?
If Turkey would become a member of the European Union, I believe that Holland should leave the European Union. So exactly the opposite that you're advocating, I'm advocating. I believe that once again Europe is also a sharing of values. And I believe Turkey is a very nice country with very nice people, and I want to have very good relations with Turkey. Like the German now Chancellor Angela Merkel said, we should have a preferential relationship with Turkey.
Well, you can dress it up any way you like, but quite frankly,
a good neighbor is not the same as a member of the family.
Your philosophy smacks of insecurity, of fear, of looking backwards, not forwards. And surely Europe now needs to look forward. It needs, apart from nothing else, it needs a demographic boost.
And to look forward, it should be strong, it should be confident, and it should know who we are. And if we don't face up to the problems that the multicultural societies in Europe, I'm not talking for my own country, the Netherlands, really has every day again, I believe we will not become stronger, but we become weaker. And if you want to be open for people to come to our countries, also from other cultures, we should first solve the enormous problem we have in our country with people from non-Western countries. They are 3-4 times more dependent on social security, on the statistics
but it's
on crime.
Playing on people's fears, that is what you do.
Those are facts, those are figures. Come and look. Don't be so ignorant. Come and look to the facts. This is there, and if we try to solve it, and I try really to solve it, then perhaps we get back to a country where we can again become tolerant to everybody. Today, this would be suicide.
Geert Wilders, thank you very much for being on HARDTalk.